You stumbled into a trap deep in the dungeon and are bleeding out fast. The hole is even bigger than the one fans are talking about. And honestly, what gives? It all began on Earth when a massive group of people suddenly vanished in an instant. And when they looked out, they saw several confused people who had already arrived in this new world. A little bunny hops out to warn them that they've been invited to a game. But this was clearly a game of life or death. You have to risk your life to learn how to play. So now is the moment to begin. With just a handful of weapons from the rabbit, monsters appeared quickly, but the trouble didn't stop there. The first fights between people started because of hunger, and the fattest ones refused to share any food. Our hero learned a power people thought was useless, so they treated him badly. His gift for cleaning things was useless right then. That night, the protagonist would go to sleep with an empty stomach. The next day, a massive ball rolled along behind the survivors. As they raced forward, some fell and died when they stepped on hidden traps. It was hard to run away from the ball while trying to kill you without a rear-view mirror. The boy, who had gone to sleep with an empty stomach, couldn't hold on much longer. And then, just to make things worse, he tripped right over a trap. We're back at the moment the hero dropped into the hole of the fans' girls, while the cursed rabbit laughed at him. He still insisted there was no way to survive this, a 0% chance. Even the other heroes who wanted to save the boy had to watch him stay alone in the big dark hole while ketchup poured out. Eventually, they finished the first part and figured they could go home. Of course, finishing the first stage meant several exciting phases were ahead for everyone, and they all got their full recovery. Even our lucky hero, who was still breathing thanks to a miracle, didn't have it any easier than the others. But even though he was alive and fully recovered, it turns out nobody remembered him or left him behind, and then the system suddenly warned that the dungeon was about to reset. The hole snaps shut tight again, so Dune, our hero, tosses a stone to set the trap off. In a blink, the rabbit shows up, completely clueless about what's going on. Why was this person still breathing after all that? Frustrated, he orders Dun to check the status, and sure enough, the boy's name is gone, proving the dungeon has marked him dead. The rabbit sees the boy is no longer a survivor, but just a bug in this dungeon, so he says the boy must follow nature's rules and die slowly in that hole. But of course, the hero won't give up so easily, so he pulls out his inventory to keep going. He must find a way to stay alive at any cost. At first, he considered digging a tunnel to escape and emerge far away from the monsters on the other side. But without the right tools, that was a really tough job. His hands were already rough and hard from years of hard work. Tired from everything that just happened and with plenty of time to spare, he starts wondering if he can actually put dirt in his inventory. And to everyone's shock, they were right after all. He dug with fresh energy, working just as hard as a machine, until he looked exactly like an excavator. The system lets him watch exactly how deep he's dug, and suddenly a message pops up saying he's earned his first achievement and unlocked a new skill. His second talent was digging, and the faster he could dig grew with every time he leveled up. The boy is frustrated because he wants a fighting skill, but how can he tell the others he only has a digging skill? Much later, the curious rabbit wondered if the boy had become worm food, so she decided to go down and look for him. As he slips into the boy's hole, expecting to find a body close by, he is shocked to see the tunnel keep getting wider the deeper he goes. When he spots the torches flickering on the cave walls, he begins to panic. Suddenly, he spots the boy calmly whistling while holding a piece of meat. The boy wasn't just alive and well-fed. He'd even built a cozy underground home with a bed and a table to eat at. By scooping some dirt from the inventory and adding a splash of water, he spun it into clay and shaped it into anything he dreamed of. The rabbit still didn't get what the man was doing. Dune offers to serve the guests, but the rabbit ignores his offer and warns that the boy will soon be left to die all alone. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble as if the newcomers have finally finished their first test. All the hard work the protagonist just finished vanishes because the dungeon is resetting. He sprints furiously to escape being buried while the rabbit just laughs at him. But then, the shaking suddenly stops. It turns out the dungeon rules don't work on the digging boy anymore. The furious rabbit warns him not to relax, because he's about to get buried in the next reset or run into a scary monster underground. Seeing how angry the rabbit is, he wonders if the beast couldn't just kill him with its bare hands. The rabbit is tied up and can only remove players, and since the boy is no longer counted as a player by the dungeon, he is safe. Suddenly, the wall gives way and a rush of water surges through the tunnels. The rabbit grows excited once more. The boy is pulled away by the rushing water, but when he returns to the start, he knows he can only live if he stops the leak. So he begins grabbing handfuls of dirt from his inventory and fills in the hole. But this fix doesn't hold, and soon the leak starts up again. Pushing his strength to the limit, he grabs a lump of dirt and molds it into a brick. Even while he's underwater, he's still thrilled with how it turned out. Soon, the rabbit couldn't get enough of how amazing it was. He stacked bricks to build a dam that nearly shut off the water flow. After fixing the water problem, he even laughs at the rabbit, claiming he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Now pumped up about his power to mold the earth, he starts shaping the fresh well he just made. Soon, a small wall and a lion's head were placed in the well as decoration, which even helped reduce the water pressure, making the system start to shine and completing a new achievement for him. The fish he found in the well became his endless supply of food. Every little thing the boy does just makes the rabbit angrier and angrier. As night fell, he sat there roasting the fish he had caught in the well. The rabbit is losing hope, convinced that his grand castle is just a giant oven roasting food. After Dun's good heart returns, he shares a meal with the rabbit, who drools at the delicious scent. But he gets furious again, says no, and starts a fresh fight. A few minutes later, the boy was already full and sound asleep in the cozy room he had built himself. The problem was that the barbecue scent floated up, and the monster smelled it. The whole cave shook with tremors. Just as the boy dreamed of eating pork, a giant boar suddenly appeared right in front of him. Right in the middle of his dream, he jolted awake and punched the boar right in the face, thinking it was still a dream. But when he finally opens his eyes and glances sideways, he sees a raging boar staring right at him. With no place left to hide, he has to stand his ground against the beast. He quickly shapes the dirt into a wall to stop the boar's first charge. He grabs the chance to slip away and build a stronger wall this time. Even so, the creature snaps it open without any trouble. Enraged by the boar that just wrecked his room, he decides to try a brand new way of fighting. A massive stone sphere rolls out from his inventory. The boy grabs it with both hands, but he can't throw it far enough, so he's forced to run from the beast all over again. As he runs, his mouth starts to water with the thought of roasting that boar for a barbecue. He then builds another giant wall while digging a hole to trap the boar. In that very second, the poor little creature knew its life was about to end as a barbecue. The little boy who drives the digger is going to have a wonderful feast. So he begins tossing stones from his stash to take out the pig. The rabbit couldn't believe it had happened again. How could the boy possibly use such a useless power like this? Only then does he finally realize just how dangerous this boy really is. As the minutes tick by, his anger toward that dungeon bug grows hotter and fiercer with every passing second. Now it's time to get the feast ready. In only a few minutes, he had completely taken all the bones out of the boar. Even the animal skull was given a second life, transformed into a top-notch frying pan. This light device even had a handle for holding the rabbit, but seeing him store fat warned that soon more monsters would descend on all this smoke and smell. But this time, Doom will be ready. He plans to turn their own opening trick against them. The moment those monsters hit the ground, there is no escape from certain death. And before you could blink, the first rabbit showed up, frantically yelling, "Don't jump," but it was already too late. A mouth-watering treat dropped right in front of him. Could this endless sea of meat be a farm that never stops growing? But that wasn't the end of it. Slowly, more of them began to come. When they caught the scent of the meat, they leaped into action, convinced it would be an easy meal. It was a perfect treat for the hero, who watched it all with pure excitement. Since we had endless meat and water, our once hungry boy was finally getting fat from all the food he was eating. Every time the dungeon resets, fresh pigs drop from the sky. On the surface, one of the men who had left the hero behind, but once tried to help him, was now piling up dozens of slaughtered pigs. He even earned a special title after killing 100 of them, gaining a power that made him as strong as a wild boar. The only trouble was leaving all that meat behind. That's why we can't eat those monsters, because they carry toxins that make their meat poisonous. That's when they finally understood just how much they needed Dan's purification power. The young boy who asked that question quickly became the center of everyone's attention. At first, everyone thought he was just a cook. But now they realize how much they missed the boy who was out there on the front lines, fixing everything. But now it is too late to turn back. Dian felt as if the whole world was wrapped in comfort around her. Even raindrops of food fell into his room. The meat seemed to go on forever, which made no sense at all. Do the pigs' brains reset every time a dungeon is completed, and do they always end up falling into the same trap? Suddenly, the rabbit jumps with a startled flick. Dion used his own strong arms to lift the heavy boar. It must be his amazing boar strength skill, since he's killing a boar every 5 minutes, over and over again. But every time the dungeon resets, his power keeps growing, so he is simply stronger now. He knows that with effort, he can master this skill and become even stronger. Dooman scrambled out of the hole and said he needed to build a proper entrance. When he reaches the top, he is shocked to find the rabbit looking sad and asks what went wrong, only for the stunned man to wonder if the skill the protagonist mentioned came from the Hornboar Slayer achievement. The Yuan agrees, but a rabbit claims it's impossible since you need to kill 100 boars first. So the protagonist explains he actually caught all of them using a trap. The rabbit, worried the dungeon keeps restarting, and while UN asked what that meant, the guide explained that every reset wipes the count clean, leaving only about 40 boars left to find. The protagonist makes a silly face and complains that his numbers still act like a bug even after resets, while the little rabbit gets annoyed and calls him a bug human, leaving Dio to wonder if all the monsters he kills will actually count. Thinking he could earn another achievement by killing 100 more enemies, he realized that doing so alone would be nearly impossible. The guy gets annoyed and calls the protagonist a fat pig that eats rabbits every day, but Yuan just asks about the weight change since the rabbit doesn't know. Outside, it's a perfect day. A squirrel scurried along a tree branch right up to a nest. He chews on a bone until it slips from his mouth, and as he drops down from the tree, he freezes when he sees the bone land right inside a dark hole in the ground. He takes a moment to stare before stepping inside. After a bit of time, he finally crawls out of the tiny hole and walks straight into the protagonist's cave. He begins to explore, peering around until he reaches the kitchen, where he is shocked by everything he sees. A little further on, he spots his bone and dashes to grab it, but he is shocked to find the rotting body of a horned bear lying there. The moment their eyes met, they both knew they had found love. Later, he came back to the tree with sparkling eyes and a happy heart. Then he went into the hole again and did this back and forth day and night until it became his usual routine, all while the other squirrels never noticed. He stepped into the cave with a calm heart, only to find that there were always more bones waiting for him. He ate every last bone until he noticed a bowl full of them, so he grabbed it and ate right out of the bowl. He grabbed a bone from the bowl without any second thought. He was just curious at first, but after one bite, a burst of amazing flavor hit him, and he couldn't stop being happy. Soon he began to eat and eat, marveling at every bite, until he cleared the bowl down to the bones and spotted something strange. As the bowl pins the protagonist down, fear grips him because he remembers the old squirrel's warning that humans are dangerous. So he tries to scramble away, but the bull's grip is just too strong to break free. He tries to hold back and stares with resolve, but in the end, he can't stop himself from going back to gnawing on the bones. Dean, who was faking sleep, saw the squirrel and cheered because he finally found another living thing after so many lonely days in the cave, noting how lucky he was that the squirrel eats bones, since he was so careful and didn't know how to sneak up on it. As Dao worries the squirrel might run while it munches on bones, Dean can't resist the cuteness and slowly reaches out to pet it. The little squirrel spots him and gives him a nod. The day is happy it worked, and once again, a warm glow appears. The system rewards the Earth's squirrel friend for taming the little one, and says, the dungeon admires this unexpected friendship. But a human wonders if these honors are given out regularly, and remembers that he couldn't win any back when he was part of the group. Thinking about his new achievement, he wonders if it matters at all, but he's grateful to the little squirrel for calling him a friend. Then he decides to call the little animal PKK and you because that's exactly the noise it makes. The little squirrel seems to like the name, and Dean is amazed that PK and you understand him, wondering if it's a reward for his achievement. Then he tells the little squirrel to sit, wondering if he can understand, but Peck sits right after him anyway. He's amazed that the squirrel truly understands him and even asks him to hold its paw, and then he asks PLK to take hold since you've got him. Suddenly, Squirtle leaps right out of his hand. Dowan started to wonder if he had misunderstood things. PLK caves in for the protagonist and points the way for the Yuan to follow, leading him to dig a bigger hole in the wall. He saw Po Kwa enter, climb through the tunnel while wondering if a squirrel noticed the small opening, and recalling how every time he tried to dig an exit, he only ended up hitting solid stone. The Yuan dug several tunnels, trying to find an escape, and he was almost ready to quit. But he is shocked to see that a path through the trees, where Pel Kong and Wu walked, is already visible. The Yun's eyes fill with tears as he realizes you're finally free to go, and he bursts into cheers, shouting that you'll finally have hope again because climbing those reeds is the key to getting outside. As he keeps climbing, the protagonist feels thrilled because he is finally about to escape life underground. He can already feel the warmth of the sun, so he keeps climbing higher. After waiting so long, he finally stepped back into the world, hearing birds sing above and feeling the soft grass beneath his feet. The Yuan holds back his tears while gazing at the endless sky and grass, but his excitement turns to fear when a wolf suddenly attacks a lamb, reminding him that nature is cruel and unfair after he finally escaped danger. As the wolves began to growl and charge forward, the Yuan quickly got ready for the worst. He crouches low, yet the wolves glide right past him without slowing down. He felt safe and happy because the wolves were too busy chasing the sheep to notice him. He wonders if PLKK knows a safer path, but right behind him, another wolf steps out from the shadows. Dom forces himself to stay calm, secretly hoping the other person is just as focused on the sheep. But the wolf is watching the hero closely from the shadows. It dashes back through the hole, screaming at the wolf and calling it a complete fool. The hero claimed the doorway was too narrow for the beast to fit through, but the wolf shattered everything in seconds and burst inside anyway. Suddenly, despair hits Da as he frantically apologizes while realizing the narrow tunnels offer no escape, so he opens his inventory and decides to finish off the lone wolf. He began building a wall, convinced it was stronger than the wolf, but before he could finish his thought, the wolf leaped and attacked him, drawing blood from Dawn. Daiman knows he's in deep trouble because the wolf is too fast to dodge. Even though its last attack missed, it's already charging at him again. The hero hesitates between fleeing and fighting, knowing he can't run forever. So as the wolf leaps again, the Yuruin warns that it's him or the monster while a blue light starts to glow around him. Then, after borrowing the horned boar's strength, he delivers a mighty punch that knocks the wolf down. The Yuan's punch sent the monster flying far away. He's so impressed, he starts wondering if he actually got hit. He can't believe just how amazing that skill really is. The system reveals that his body will get twice as strong for a short time. After giving a shot and realizing just how amazing he actually is, Dom finally admits his skill is truly incredible. The wolf roars to its feet, furious, while the hero feels a mix of triumph at finally hurting the beast and sadness that it wasn't enough to kill it in one strike. The timer flashes just 7 seconds left, and Dao knows in his heart that this short burst is his biggest weakness. With only 6 seconds left, he wastes no time and charges forward, but Cowolf's attack fails as Dao leaps to the side, dodging the monster just in time. Before the wolf could move, the hero landed another hard punch right on its ribs. With a fierce look in his eyes, he hopes the monster will finally fall as Dao keeps raining down a barrage of punches. Punches are so heavy they kick up dust from the ground, and even though the protagonist is exhausted and only 3 seconds remain, the wolf is still standing. Once more, the beast charges, but Dao and Ollie leap aside just in time. With only 2 seconds left, he yanks a spike from his pack, screams for the wolf to perish, and thrusts it forward as the monster lets out a guttural growl and strikes at his tail. The blast knocks the protagonist against the wall, where Yum's spike remains stuck in the wolf's neck, leaving the beast alive and growling that this fight won't be over easily, while a system timer counts down 99 seconds before the boar's strength returns. But even as the wolf glares with anger, Da realizes the monster's deadliest move is its leap to slash with its front claws. But after that, the attack cools down. The hero pleads for a 90-second truce, but the wolf strikes again, and just as Daman readies his final blow, the beast opens its jaws to bite him right before the hero realizes he should have used his paw instead. Just as the wolf lunged to bite him, Dawn quickly shoved Billy's deed into the beast's mouth, catching it completely off guard. After a while, the guide showed up in the cave, puzzled because the protagonist wasn't making any more meat. He insists that Dean must be up to no good until he's found, while the rabbit stares in shock at the protagonist's creepy bone armor. Dean proudly notes that his armor turned out well enough for these dangerous times, but seeing a plains wolf skull in the sky shocks the guide, who wonders if Dean found a way up there. And while the rabbit asks why the protagonist still stays, Dean insists it's because the place is comfortable and tells him to keep living there, even with his new pet, but since Dean admits he survived only by luck in such danger, the rabbit insists he must stay and prepare to leave properly. Dao says he'll keep the base for a bit now that the problems are clear, and he's ready to start getting things set up. The rabbit tries to tell the Yuan to quit and give up, but his teasing leaves the Yuan feeling great, even calling him a curse bug. So later the Yuan starts training like a boar by lifting heavy weights and running, convinced that getting stronger physically will make his skills grow even faster. Because he uses that skill so much, the system shows its level going up, making it last longer and recharge faster. Diagnon thought back to his last lucky escape, remembering that wolves always move in packs. Even if he steps up to fight them one by one, he knows there's no promise he'll win, so he trains hard, using a dead boar as a heavy punching bag while hoping to get strong enough to survive. The system reveals the boar has grown stronger, so Yuan unleashes a furious flurry of punches, declaring he will never run away again, and catches 2 carefree wolves completely off guard as he leaps from the bushes. Next, the hero channels the boar's power and hurls a thorn at one enemy, while the other dodges and rushes toward Da. He promised to show off his training results, so he punched the monster so hard it flew through the air and crashed into a tree, smashing it completely apart. Right behind him, a wolf lunges to bite his leg, but he sees it coming, admits one punch won't kill it, and follows up with another hit, vowing to keep going until the beast is truly down. As the monster crashes to the ground and the second wolf rises, the guide notices he's grown mighty, and Daman feels the same surge of power, wondering if it truly makes him strong. Then he believes he cannot lose, and starts to wonder if he has grown too strong. But the rabbit waves back and says he isn't that tough, since Soon could kill 10 wolves in just 1 second. Dao claims everyone is weak compared to Soon, but the rabbit points out that Boy Jin Duck killed 3 wolves all by himself. Then howls as one of them starts to join in, mocking the protagonist by saying the whole pack is coming and warning that the Yuan is lucky since there are usually more than 5 wolves. Then he tells the hero to beat them all before time runs out and to show him just how powerful he really is. Dua then asks the guide if he knows what the best part of his skill is. He claims his army is now 2.4 times bigger, so he can flee 2.4 times faster, leaving the guide shocked and demanding a proper battle, only for the Yuan to dismiss the fight and insist on saving lives instead. Right after, he leaps back into the cave hole. The rabbit warns that players usually get so obsessed and start fighting so hard that they end up dying. He gets furious and orders the wolves to charge the hole, but the Yuan quickly builds an earth wall to stop them from getting in. The monsters dig in vain, leaving the guy furious as he calls in a legendary bug player to deal with them. While inside the cave, the O thanks you and PK Kevin for bringing isolated wolves who are now dangerous in packs. So he plots his next move after proving he can survive fights against 2 of them without stone walls. He is scared that something surprising will happen again like last time, and he won't be able to shut the door before it's too late. Even if he runs into the hole, there's no hiding place, so he tells PLK of you he has no choice but to ask for help, then sends Duan to ask his little squirrel to find the wolves that left the pack, warning him to stay far away and be careful, before saying he'll start getting things ready. Outside, 3 wolves have just finished chasing down a sheep, and now Duan is ready to put his plan into action, convinced the distance is just right. Then he pulls up the list of everything he has, while the guide watches with suspicion, wondering if the rabbit is really just an ordinary person in disguise. The rabbit admits he has no special powers, but the Yuan insists he can still throw heavy balls of earth using the boar's own strength. He activates his power and hurls a thorn like a spear, declaring, "This is the safety first attack." The wolves stay far away and don't care until the attack comes close, but misses the monsters, so the rabbit starts laughing and asks Dean if he didn't mean wolves, since safety always comes first. The protagonist throws another spear and misses again, so the guide warns that they're about to fight with their hands, because that's what happens when you lack experience. The plains wolves are the most agile in Phase 1, so the distance isn't a problem for Daeum, but he points out that they still can't dodge while flying. He tosses the earth balls with a confident grin, claiming everything is exactly as he planned, but the guide shakes his head and warns that buying time with them is pointless because they'll be destroyed in an instant. Suddenly, a ball bounces right into the wolf's face. The guide is stunned as Du reveals that the rabbit has underestimated the ball's true weight, which he boosted to 20 kilograms using his dating ability, and now, with the help of the boar's strength, he throws them like heavy bowling balls, leaving the guide in absolute disbelief. In just a few seconds, Down knocked down 2 wolves, leaving only 1 left, but the rabbit reminded everyone that wolves hunt together as a team. Just as the guide thinks they've spotted a wolf named Checkmate, a third one sneaks up and bites Dean in his blind spot while he turns away. But he managed to stop the attack by holding his arms up to block it. He was thrown far away while the wolf waited, unaware that the beast was creeping closer to eat him, leaving the rabbit to cheer that his rival was finally getting the attack he deserved and the end he was hoping for. The rabbit chuckled at the scene, for even though he felt sad for Dallin, who was now trapped inside the wolf's jaws, he couldn't help but laugh. While the fierce attack raged on, the rabbit watched everything from a safe distance, praying his plan would work. But then something strange occurred, and the wolf felt its teeth shatter. The rabbit watched in shock as Dalen's tough armor shattered the beast's teeth, giving him a chance to free his arms from the dangerous grip. He had found a safer spot to wait while the injured wolf struggled to get back on its feet. Dallin was happy with the armor because, without it, he would have just become a snack. The hornboars are the fiercest monsters at that level, and the wolf's sharp teeth are just a joke compared to their deadly bones. Even then, the power was felt by his body, and he took a moderate beating. The window flashed that he had just 8 seconds left to unleash the boar's power. Right then, he forced himself to cool down so he could figure out how to strike back. There was plenty of time, so he began fiddling with something in his hands. Devon, holding the globe of the earth, got into a throwing stance to hurl it at the wolf. Finally, he was ready to take the shot, so Dom hurled his weapon at the injured wolf. A massive boom tore through the woods. The rabbit watched with worry, wondering if the man had just eaten the wolf, a result far worse than the rabbit wanted since he'd hoped to be the one in the wolf spot. Dunn planned to slip through a maze of tunnels, take out the lone wolves he found, and then run away. That plan worked well at first, but soon they started guarding their tunnels closely, never guessing that a squirrel was watching them and quickly telling a friend about it. With it, he seized the chance to practice whenever attacking became too dangerous. The more he traded, the sharper his skill became, until the wolves could no longer stand against him. The forest seemed quiet and peaceful, but Dahlin was secretly managing the wolves within it. The rabbit couldn't believe the human was still breathing. His anger only grew as he wanted to fix things himself, and called the attacker a coward for the way he struck. His armor was nearly gone, so he chose to drop it to stay safe, and might build a new one someday. Who knows? Dahlin noticed the day was strangely quiet, yet the howling wolves told him they should have arrived long ago, proving he still had some to hunt down in the forest. The rabbit couldn't hide his annoyance, so Dahlin asked what was wrong, only to be told that he had happily finished off all the wolves. The rabbit bragged that he was a brave hero who would soon die, while he partied over having managed to scare off all the wolves. He promised to tell anyone he found where they were, but the rabbit wished him dead and refused to help. Dawan cheered for his smart plan and got ready to take the next step. He had to beat the boss, but since he couldn't do it by himself, he raced through the plains forest to find new players and team up before the game reset in 10 days, knowing that if they were too far away, they'd be in big trouble. A loud noise rang out across the woods. Right in the middle of things, they found a tiny open space. In the open space, a group of players was facing down a pack of wolves. They knew the wolves were fierce, and there were many of them, so one player blamed his teammate, and they argued. The rabbit shuffled past, looking completely sad. He looked at the group of players and saw they were acting just as worried as he had expected. For him, that missing piece in the dungeon was more tension. As the wolves moved closer to the people, the rabbit cheered at the sight and wished the pack would protect them all. He wanted to make sure no one stayed around so Dahlin had no chance to escape or survive for long. One wolf gets flung out into the distance. The axe-wielding player made sure it happened exactly as the rabbit had guessed, proving that not everyone is weak, and he realized the old man was hiding special strength for emergencies. As Windblade swings the weapon harder, the damage it deals grows stronger. But be warned, this power can also strike your own teammates. The players begged him to hold back so he wouldn't hurt them, but the old man just ignored them, knowing that unless he wins, everyone will just become food, because only the strongest survive. The rabbit adored it, for that was the very heart of the dungeon. The scariest monsters are often the people we know. The rabbit secretly wishes the reckless one would kill all his allies, because if everyone else dies, Dahlin will be left all by himself. But the guy is planning his life and dreaming of reaching a higher place. Dahlin is thrilled to be free, but he's clueless about his next move, and the rabbit won't even take him to the others. He asks Pio to guess where the others, including the humans, could be, and the squirrel pauses to think hard about it. But he stopped pushing because he knows his friend can't know everything. He can't look around because it might get him hurt, yet he isn't brave enough to face the boss all by himself. He starts to imagine building a giant watchtower just to help him spot them again. Thinking too much and never building is a waste, but he's confident in his skills. So, he has to fly high enough to clear the treetops. So, he began stacking the earth bricks. He'll build the walls from earth, which will be a breeze since he already knows how to work with it. Even though the structure might fall apart without cement, he figured out a way to make it much safer. He reaches his hand out toward the bricks. He can reshape objects with his hands and plans to fuse the bricks together using his unique digging skills. It isn't a pile of bricks that could fall apart, but solid earth that stands strong and won't crumble so easily. By day's end, he had squeezed in a lot of work and was worn out. He finished the task in just about 10 hours. He looks up at the sky from where he stands and thinks about how beautiful the evening is becoming. Far off in the distance, blood arcs through the air. The rabbit grabs the food and says, "We need this if we want to fight tomorrow." He feels great seeing the players quickly getting the hang of the game. He spots a guy he doesn't like stealing something from a dead body. He's convinced that this player must have a lot of stuff in his inventory. The man didn't know what was happening until the rabbit stepped up to introduce himself as their guide, explaining that he'd never met the man before and pointing out that the construction site hadn't been there just yesterday. This is the very first time the rabbit has ever seen something like this. He is upset, and only one person there could help. So at the top of the tower, Javon is building something else while tired. His hands tremble until he finally finishes that tiny thing. A rabbit popped up beside him to ask what he was up to, and he replied that he'd frightened the poor thing, but insisted it was important work, only to complain that Dwin was the very reason his job keeps getting in the way. He told me that Dane now has plenty of free time and has stopped digging tunnels to start building towers instead. Dallin asked the rabbit how long it took him to build that tower. Don claimed the whole tower would only take 4 hours, but the rabbit didn't believe him until they started building it together, and after finishing the first part, which acted as an observatory to instantly show every monster and person on a real-time map, the rabbit still couldn't believe it despite Dawn's proof, so she eagerly asked what the second special feature was. He thought he had won the moment the fifth tower fell, and suddenly a beam of light appeared. He unlocked a brand new building talent that made his constructions finish in half the time. He told me the treatment was so powerful that he didn't even need to take a rest. Because he learns so fast, he now has time left to spend on interior decorating. He pointed to where he'd placed the bed, making the rabbit very unhappy, while he himself has gone completely crazy from all the awards he's been getting. If Dallin finds more players to turn the place into a giant park, the dangerous rabbit will fight hard to stop it and keep the area isolated, especially since Dallin is already asking where he can find new people because he hasn't found any yet, and the next day, the players will see that the tower which was missing the day before has suddenly appeared. Suddenly, a rabbit hops right up to them and lets out a creepy chuckle. He urged them to follow him up to the tower for a surprise, but one of them warned that the rabbit was a liar who would lead them straight to a powerful monster if they changed their path. The rabbit played innocent, claiming it took him ages to prepare, but when the others turned back, he was thrilled to have tricked them, keeping Dallin from finding other players while letting his friends take the easy route simply by wasting time. Maybe this is how Dallin meets his end. Now it is time to finish them all, as Dallin studies the tracks on the ground, only to find that they belong to a horde of monsters. But as he looks closer, he spots something strange on the map that makes him stop. Suddenly, 10 new signals popped up on the map, filling it with activity. Then even more appeared, so many that Dawn is terrified and can't imagine what a monstrous rat running with a horde of others could mean. They keep moving through the woods without stopping, leaving a path of destruction behind them. The trees shake as they move forward. If Dallin had moved any slower, he would have been in serious trouble, and he is thankful to be right by his tower. Every 4 weeks after the reset, the rats swoop down from the mountains and eat everything in their way. Dallin had been counting down the days for this, but for a fleeting second he forgot. Then, as another reset approaches, he suddenly realizes the truth. The players aren't on the map because they've either passed away or moved on to the next level. He decides he can stop searching and head back, but a squirrel tries to speak to him while making a funny face. Dan tells them to ignore the rats and just follow the map, because a huge gate is waiting right there. Though the players have survived the hard journey to reach the giant golem, they are terrified because its size makes swords useless, and as the beast readies its attack, the ball player steps forward bravely to take it down. He winds up his mace, ready to smash right into the golem. The other players stand frozen in shock at the sight before them. The weapon lay on the ground, covered in a mess of tomato sauce. As a monster charges forward with unstoppable force, the player freezes in terror, feeling helpless against such a giant. So he cries out for Bout's help, only to see a sudden strike knock the ready-to-kill golem off balance from the side. The golem's hand dropped down without a single sound. The player thanks her, but she points him toward where the attack came from. A brick shot through the air, hurtling toward the ground. Now that dawn has come, Dawn is channeling the boar's mighty strength to toss bricks. His golem is unlike the map monsters, so even though the boss is strong, the woman warns Dallin to be careful, but Gollum keeps attacking with his last hand. Dan winds up his arm, ready to hurl another brick. This time, the blow cracks open a big hole in the side of the monster's head. Now it turns to Dawn, but Gollum gets so angry that he can't control himself. Dawn suddenly understands that running away right now is the smartest thing to do. Gollum is closing in fast, and Dallin can't think of anything else but the time they once beat that wild boar. They swung a rope across the path to trip the beast and expose its soft belly for a blow, and Dallin called it a perfect plan. Sun just shrugged it off with a tired saying about how big things fall harder, while Dawn threw another brick right at Gollum. This shot strikes Gary's leg right at the knee, and as Dawn waits to see what happens, the other players watch with shock. As the golem crumbles to the ground, Idolin smiles with relief and thanks S for the wise advice that saved the day. The golem stays flat on the ground, trying to grow back its broken leg, but that gives Delan all the time he needs to throw another brick at it, only for the stone to bounce harmlessly off the creature. As the brick thuds down, Gollum stands safe and sound. Suddenly, a window pops up to startle Dawn, letting him know the boar is cooling down and won't be able to attack again for 70 seconds. The golem has healed completely and is now ready to end the player's fight. It lunges at Dallin, but he dodges out of the way. He crashed down nearby and gets ready to spring into action. Dawn grabbed a heavy brick from the ground and hurled it at Gollum, but the stone just clattered harmlessly to the floor. The furious Gollum throws his arms wide as if he's about to explode. He can't figure out what the monster is doing as it gathers all its power, then slams down onto the ground with such force that the whole earth shakes. The other players are scared and trying to figure out what happened to that guy. But one instant gives them hope that all is not lost. And while the other companion freezes in fear, the woman dashes toward the golem as the man shouts in confusion, only for a distant strike to hit the creature's face just as she arrives to stand guard and ask how she can help defeat it, prompting him to beg for just one more minute before she offers a shorter 10 seconds, even as he warns her that time is no longer on their side. Golem lunges forward to strike her down without any mercy. The woman shuts her tight, dreading the terrible things to come. She opens her eyes carefully, knowing she is still alive. Now the other players are there to help her, forming a team that refuses to leave her alone as they ask Dawn what to do, and he tells them to attack Golem's chest. Attacking that spot is hard because Bolem guards it, but he knows something must be there, so the group clings to the monster and helps the wounded as she throws a fireball straight at its chest. The armor tore open and glowed, so the golem pulled its arms across its chest to shield itself. That sight was exactly what Della needed, prompting the group to realize they must strike the monster's chest while Davin checks if his power is ready and the others battle the surprisingly strong golem. He realizes the monster looks like it's made of dirt and rock. Since it's made of earth, he holds the upper hand, and then it finally hits him that the material is clay. If that's true, you should be able to tame this beast. Suddenly, the golem spreads its arms wide and hurls the players back. Dawn rushes toward it, just as the woman wonders if a full minute has already gone by. Dawn nods to her with a sigh, admitting that after all this time, he simply wasn't sure enough to strike. The golem heals itself, so they must study it while risking their lives to help him react. The time he won gave him a chance to plan his attack. He feels thankful for what they have done. He crouches low, already channeling the boar's raw power. He leaped toward the golem with the object while the players stared at Dawn in total amazement. The woman is just as shocked by what she has seen. Dawn is climbing high, moving toward Golem. He thrusts his arm forward to pierce the beast's chest and steps back just as the monster loses its balance. Golem finally crumbles down into a huge pile of dirt. Dawn cheered that his plan worked while the other players joined in the celebration. The wound feels joyful because everything worked out, and now his digging skill is at level 9. His experience pushed him to level 10. The boar's strength sits at level 5, and the cheering players have come to him to celebrate their victory over the beast. The rabbit is so angry at their success that he is fuming. He is seething with rage against Dylan. The players start arguing with the rabbit, who had promised to take Simon home right after they beat the boss. He's mad that Dylan's trick worked on Golem. He's really fed up with this. He insists the game isn't over and that we're heading straight to the next stage soon. She asks what comes next, and then his umbrella starts to glow. As the door swings open, he urges them inside, but they feel sad since they weren't ready for more challenges. A bit flustered herself, the woman cheers up her friend since there's no way back, so one of them dashes through the portal while they thank Dalen and the rabbit hurries them along. The woman tells us that Deland showed great bravery. He thanked her and motioned for her to step forward, and together they walk through the portal to begin the next part of their journey. Damon waves a shaky goodbye to the furious rabbit, but the moment he tries to move forward, he is locked in place. The system blocked him for no reason, so Dawn told the rabbit to fix it, but the rabbit said the system rejected him, leaving both Dawn and the rabbit confused about what to do after a week had passed since the reset, and now Derlin's clothes are spread out on the cave floor. There are also a few bones lying scattered all around the area. Lying on his back and staring at the ceiling, he's so bored he can't stand living this way anymore. He walks over to the water to take a quick drink. After washing his face, he takes a moment to think things over. The squirrel stayed by his side, and the base didn't reset, but his towers vanished, and when the reset finally came, only the underground world remained untouched while the surface started all over. He is still unsure if this area counts as part of the dungeon. He realized the system's creator only put him in a world that was already there, meaning he could go anywhere as long as he didn't use the system to get there. To the south and west lie the deserts. The north holds the ruins, and the mountain of rats waits to the east. With not enough food to cross the desert, his only chance is to dig underground and hope the mountain of rats doesn't block his path. He feels good about his idea and makes up his mind to give a shot. He's now heading east deep into the forest. He swung a stick and cracked the wolf right on the head. Around him, a few wolves ride away from the blows. Just as another foe lunges to strike him from the shadows, he sidesteps the blow at the very last second. He lifts the screen up and immediately strikes it. He called down a chunk of dirt to smash it. The wolves keep charging while the boar's strength fades. It was time for him to use his other powers. He stacks up branches until his little tower stands tall enough to keep the wolves far below him. Dalen is now quite content with this distance. He is safe for being attacked there, but he can still strike out at the wolves. The rabbit is so worried because Davin is getting stronger and stronger. He jumps down with a loud laugh, leaving the wolves defeated on the ground. He tells the rabbit he's heading for the mountain, and the rabbit can't believe it. He studies the rabbit with a frown, convinced that the mountain itself must hold some secret, given how the animal is acting. The rabbit begs him to stay, but the guy just walks right past. The rabbit claimed that place as his home, but the man pointed out they'd never really liked each other. The rabbit whispered that without Dawn, he would surely fade away into loneliness. Noticing footprints on the ground, he imagines he's already close to the mountain, so he quickly builds a tower with an underground entrance, much to the rabbit's dismay. He can plan his next move carefully thanks to the map that shows the tower. This way, he races toward the mountain fast and stays out of harm's way. He took care of the rats along the way, but if a group got too big, he simply ducked underground. Since the map was his only way to stay safe, he built many watchtowers to guard it. He was nearly finished constructing his fourth tower. Just then, a system notification pops up. The players are locked inside the first area and can't go anywhere else. Dawn never saw this outcome coming. The rabbit claimed that stepping past that mark would reveal if heaven is full of bread, and with that, the world ended. Dawn was so surprised that the rabbit never got tired that he asked it what lay past that spot. The rabbit didn't even notice, so he just went about his business. Then something else grabs his eye, and he realizes this new problem is way more serious. A glowing line of energy stretched out in front of his foot, and the ground beneath his head looked completely different. The rabbit scoffs, saying rats own this land and he couldn't pass, but since he already walked right through, he gets mad. A loud system scream warns him of this. The rabbit, shocked he would dare, commands him to turn back. Darren keeps walking, not even looking back at him. The rabbit just keeps shouting at him and trying to get his attention, but the guy just laughs and says, "If you don't like it, come and get it yourself." The rabbit is so mad he's shaking, but he has no idea what to do. Darwin watches him with impatience while the rabbit teases him from the edge, asking if he can't even jump the gap. The rabbit shivers with cold fear, insisting that isn't what he means and that he is not scared. Darwin playfully teases him more, and the rabbit complains that he really doesn't like the color of that place. He was right. That guy can't go there because this world is split into different parts, and the reset might just fail in that specific area. He needed to make sure, but the rabbit chose to bolt. The guy wanted to ask a few questions, but he'd rather keep the rabbit far away. With 2 weeks left before the reset, he'll spend his time building up his towers. If he doesn't reset, his journey will be smooth and he'll reach the other side in no time. If everything plays out the way he expects, he'll finally be free to walk out of that dungeon and never look back. He finished one tall tower and is already building his second one. After 3 long hours of working, he's starving now. He's taking a quick look to see what gear he's got packed away. Something on the list grabbed his eye. There it lay, the golem core he had received without even realizing it. He pictured that the core he held was the key to building his own golem. He's staying at the mountain's foot because he fears it might draw Kuni monsters up to the surface. Since the tunnel is too low, he decides to change how he builds the golem. It doesn't have to look like a person, and if it has 4 legs, it will glide along much more easily. He's got a new idea. He's going to build an elephant. He drew a design on the ground and got ready to bring it to life. He pulls up clumps of dirt and starts molding them with his hands to create Gollum. The squirrel gives a quiet nod to his hard-working friend, and Dao pats him right back. With one last touch, the golem is done. Don cheered when he finished building his sand elephant, but it quickly tumbled over, making him realize its soft belly had no way to hold its shape. He chooses to make it thinner, even though it looks a bit weird. An hour later, the work is done, and he's completely exhausted. Now with 2 extra legs and a cargo space, the spider elephant golem is all set to go. He leaps on the giant creature's back and readies himself to plant the core inside. He tucks it right into the spot on its forehead. After climbing down from the giant golem, he stands right in front of it, holding his breath for what might happen next. After a while, nothing happens. Dean wonders what went wrong, just as the golem's eyes start to glow with intense light. The elephant stands up and lets out a huge, booming sound. He earned another achievement with Belem Builder, a creation that will follow and obey him. The guy loves his Belem so much that he's thinking about placing his first order. He orders it to sit just like a dog. The golem slowly sinks to the ground, perfectly obeying the order, and Delan is thrilled by this. He scrambles up his trunk and onto the very top of his head, then shares how amazing it feels. He orders the creature to rise back to its feet. You'll listen to every order because they'll help you a lot. Now Dylan's face goes quiet as he starts to think. The squirrel is still trying to figure out what all the fuss was about. And the guy says they've got to head off somewhere. Gollum stands ready to obey, and Doan declares that his Gallop is now like a brother to him. The little rabbit hops in front of the players to wish them luck as they face the boss. They still wonder if they'll ever make it home after this. The bright light flashes so hard it makes them stumble and squint for a second. They open their eyes to take a look at what is waiting for them. And there was nothing left, only a huge pile of ruined ground. The rabbit stares in total shock at what he's seeing. Then he remembers to stop, snaps with rage, and the players beg to go home. But Guy runs away from his golem. He used his power to carve a tunnel that takes him straight from the mountain to the ruins. It took a whole week of hard work, but every drop of sweat was worth it in the end. He's eager to rush back to his base. He finally reaches the mountain of death. It took him 2 hours, which was a very reasonable time. He pulls up his screen to take a look at the item. He's wondering which kind of golem to bring to life this time. He's thinking about crafting one to use in battle. With strong arms, he gave a solid bite. He already knows exactly what he's going to do. As the hours slip away, the first light of dawn begins to spill over the horizon. He should have built the elephant that way, or it would have fallen apart before he finished. He pulls the string tight to his toy and gives it the fierce name of a gorilla. Suddenly, the girl's eyes start to burn with a bright, intense light. He shouts with excitement because it worked. He gives it a few orders, reminding it to watch out for the ceiling. Then, he brings the two golems together to meet each other. The happy, old squirrel boasts that he's the oldest one here and challenges them to a strength test. Outside the tower, a horde of rats scurried about. A few of them begin to see strange things starting to happen. Something loud is banging at the tower's door. Soon, the golems step out alongside Delon. The rats instantly snap and go wild. They surge forward to strike the golems as Delm shouts the single word, attack. The gorilla springs at the rats. It lifts its strong arms and slams them down hard onto the ground. The rats are shocked, but the others rush to attack only to be swept aside by the gorilla as if they were nothing. And he keeps going like this, completely unstoppable. The man watches the strength of the level 1 boss and everything else. The gorilla keeps slamming its fist down on the rats over and over. But the rats don't shrink away. Instead, they swarm in even bigger groups, and some have already started climbing onto the elephant. He commands the elephant to move quickly and stop the rats from climbing up. It starts pounding the ground in a violent rage, but there are simply too many rats, and they're already closing in around it. The guy realizes he needs to change his approach and starts thinking about launching a much bigger attack. Then he suddenly realizes a new way to protect himself. He throws something to the gorilla. The gorilla snatches a huge block of sand and holds it tight in his hands. Doan gives the order to toss it. The gorilla gets ready to throw the object. It soars far and high up into the sky. The block smashes down hard, right into the middle of the rat horde. Darren was happy with the result and called out to the elephant to walk right up to the gorilla. Then the man leaps up onto the other giant golem. Now he asks the gorilla to reach out its hand. This way he can quickly drop the cues and tell the golem to keep pounding the rats. So it follows that path, guided by the clues. Each throw takes out a few rats at once. Darwin keeps giving commands to his golem, which throws them at the rats. Even though that trick worked, he had an even cooler plan waiting. With the elephant standing right next to them, he slipped the blocks into the empty space where its body used to be. Now the ruler's strike came even faster than before. Soon, nearly all the rats were taken care of. A warning flashes on his screen, telling him the dungeon is about to reset. Dan never saw the dungeon reset coming. The moment the message shows up, the ground begins to shake. The rats start screaming as if something terrible is happening to them. They run like crazy, which makes the guy wonder what's so scary that they're acting so panicked. The tiny squirrel looks frightened and sluggish, so he runs to his friend to ask for help. The squirrel scrambles to warn him about the danger coming soon. He knows his little friend wasn't scared last time, but this time things are different. He quickly checks his mini-map to see if it holds any clues that could explain the strange reaction. At first, everything seems normal, but the land around the first stage is slowly turning dark while the towers start to vanish. You know, everything is fading away, even though the place still looks safe, but something catches the guy's eye. Strange shapes started popping up along the edge, and they looked like monsters. Don shouts at his golems to run away from that place right now. He tells the elephant to dive underground and the gorilla to scale the tower. Now he and the gorilla are high above, taking in a view around them. That first tremor was like a huge sigh of relief for him. That noise was a whole lot simpler to explain. That was the rumble of all the first phase monsters diving deep beneath the ground. Dallin can't miss out on this chance. This was his perfect moment to get stronger, so he began channeling the boar's raw power. After that, he called up some earth cubes and told the gorilla to toss them at the monsters, turning them into a makeshift bazooka. All he needed to do was build a block the gorilla could lift, so together they started tossing them off the top of the tower. A small rat peered up with a doubtful look. A huge chunk of earth falls from the sky, straight down at the monsters. They drop from above like heavy stones, and the small creatures have no way to escape. They didn't want to kill the monsters, they just wanted to make Dun better at fighting them. Because the ability had to cool down, it was much harder to level up than the digging skill. This time was different, because he had a safe place to keep using it for a long time, a real golden chance, while the rats screamed in pain as the giant boulders crashed down on their heads. They packed together in a tight circle to build a tower out of their own bodies. It shoots up fast toward the Void Belt Tower, and you see the truth. They're out of reach now, and hitting them would likely break their own frame. But we have no choice but to bring them down. He turns to the tiny squirrel and declares he will nip that problem in the bud by striking the living tower at a critical point. Suddenly, the rats start to wobble and their tower begins to shake. The rats crash to the ground, beaten by Dylan's thrown stones. He digs in to finish what he started, focusing all his energy to prepare his powerful digging move. He uses it to build a big thing right in front of him. He'll keep looping through the same cycle for as long as he can. He readies his hand to unleash even more of his power. Before him lies a jagged block covered in sharp spikes. He says that's all it takes to get the gorilla to do its job. With a mighty heave, the beast throws the giant spiked block down at the monsters below, watching it spin wildly as it falls. Its fall was so powerful that it tore everything in its path apart. A giant crack tore through the ground from the crash, sweeping the rats out of the block's way. Don couldn't believe how well this idea worked. A faint glow quietly shows up right in front of him. The system finally tells him he has unlocked the power to dig. A surprise since he never thought there was anything past level 10, even as the boar's strength has grown to a formidable level 7. Standing on his tower, he decided that all of this had been worth the effort. He decides to leave the tower and tells his little squirrel it's time to head back to the base. Mag walks toward the barren land. With the silence finally returning, he can't help but wonder if the monsters have truly vanished for good. Staring at the map, he thinks they've hidden in the caves, and with so many rats around, the tops of those caves are bound to become dangerous and full of their nests. He knew that staying put made them vulnerable to a big attack, but he lets his results drive him forward and pushes him to dig deeper. Now that he has mastered this power, doing it has become much easier. He can dig huge tunnels with barely any work at all. With his special underground power, he found something strange. The tunnel cut through a rock formation that didn't look like any other. The stone was so hard that no matter how hard he dug, he simply couldn't get through it. With no answer coming, he chose to head back to the surface. The air feels a bit chilly, and he thinks it's because the open space has no trees to block the wind. He knew he couldn't risk walking through the rat-filled zone, so he had to find a safe route that kept the monsters at bay. Even if he can't dig, he can still build towers, but that underground block leaves him helpless against a new horde of giant rats, and things are about to get dangerous. He decides that gathering more golems would be smart. So after the dungeon resets, he grabs another one and asks the gorilla to join him up on the mountain tower he built. He's already sent word to the newly born gorilla number 2. That's his second combat golem. As the gorilla struggled with the boss's weak core was right there for the taking, and once he gathered more golems, he wouldn't even need to join the fight anymore. Now that his digging skills are so strong, he can get things done much more easily. This way, he can train his boar's strength by creating bigger blocks that are too heavy for anyone else to lift. Their heavy weight makes most monsters no trouble at all, but since a scarier beast might be hiding out there, you still need to stay careful. Now that he has 3 golems at his side, all he has to do is plan carefully. After searching for a long time underground, he finally chose to climb back up to the surface. As soon as he arrived, he started shaking from the cold right away. The chill was so fierce it made him sneeze, feeling like he'd already caught a bug. Because he's up on the mountain, the high air makes the spot much colder than the land around him. He opened his inventory to find something to use, then took out the horned boar's hide to wrap around himself and block the biting cold wind. The sleepy little squirrel bumbled up to him, and the warm coziness was so strong that it soon put his tiny friend fast asleep. The scene was perfect enough to bring him joy. After a while, he told the golems to stop marching, and once they stood still, the wind died down enough to stop the cold from biting at him. Dalen pictured putting a roof over the elephant to stop the freezing wind, so he decided to try his idea and build it. As he climbed down, he told the gorillas to guard the edges of their territory. He began molding the clay to build whatever he had in mind. Then he activated his special power. But then, something strange started to happen right before his eyes. Before, he couldn't make anything that thin, but now that he has mastered this power, he pulled it off. It wasn't just thin, it was so smooth you'd never guess it wasn't made of hard ceramic. He pressed it with his fingertip until the piece cracked from being too thin, ruining his hardness. Looking closely at the object, he sees that the edges must be made thicker so it won't snap. Even though he tried again and again, he still couldn't make it strong, but finally he made something that wasn't too thin. Now that the piece is thicker, he starts to worry if it would break if it fell. He pauses to think, picturing what could happen next. That's when his mind clicked, and he finally figured it out. He must hold the piece like an arched dome so it can stand up against its own weight and offer better protection. Now he leaned forward, his mind racing through ideas on how to make it even better. Once the piece was ready, he asked one of the gorillas to gently set the object down on the elephant. Now the elephant had a roof built just right to keep its riders safe from the rain and sun. Darwin settles down calmly, feeling proud of what he just did. Suddenly, a tiny squirrel hops into view and speaks to him. The guy believes his skills can build a wall to stop the monsters from getting through. Since he can no longer hide beneath the ground, building a wall will keep them safe when they travel on the surface. Because it was so freezing, he decided to build an insulated wall first. Now that DAV was at his peak, he could craft even more amazing creations. He could recreate the life he left behind in Korea. After a lot of hard work, he made something that had never existed in that dungeon before. They had built a campfire that worked just like an oven. Now that Gollum the elephant had a chimney, he could spit out hot air to keep warm. There was a spot for burning wood, a bathroom, a storage area, and a well-designed steam passage that went right through Gollum's trunk. The work was so flawless that the tiny squirrel was blown away, unlocking a new heating system and adding a special heat-swaying trick to the craftsman's skills. He never saw a reward coming, and the surprise was gone from the very start. 2 long months slipped by, and soon they found themselves standing inside ancient ruins. The rabbit stares at what he sees with wide-eyed disbelief. Once again, the golem was destroyed, leaving the players wondering what to do next. This is definitely not good, but Doan keeps grabbing the item from the level 1 boss. If this keeps going, the bosses above him will start to get annoyed. At his base, the man quietly sighs because he cannot share what he has built with anyone else. If the rabbit were there, he'd show him his whole army of golems, which now numbers 5, as the group climbs up the mountain. The man sits inside his mobile home and watches his elephant slip through the window, thinking the rats have probably gone to sleep high up on the mountain. If they keep going this way and nothing goes wrong, they will be at the very top soon. He finally slid off his giant elephant and gazed at the horizon, amazed by the view. From that spot, the mountains rise up to create a stunning view. Maybe that is why folks love hiking, because the stunning views and crisp air take them on a real adventure. He glances back for a second, and right away, something grabs his eye. From far away, he spotted a strange fort standing in the distance, and he had no idea why anyone would build it there. Now he's left guessing what that strange thing could be. The nearer he approaches, the more he wonders why those ancient ruins stand right there. He's far away from the first phase and wonders why it's called a historical ruin, since it's just a rabbit hole, but he thinks it must be very old. He wonders if this place was once just a normal world before it turned into a giant dungeon. And if he just stays standing there in front of it, he'll never find out what's hidden. So he stepped in to check things out, feeling much safer now that 5 golems were at his side. He scrambles up the stairs and glances at the gargoyle, standing right next to him. He'd never seen that before and can't help wondering what the statue is. The statue looks like it was crafted with great care, filled with rich details. It was made from rough stone, but the color looked a little odd. Even so, it was clearly made with great care, and he kept climbing the stairs past the statue. Just as he climbs higher, the statue suddenly comes to life and moves. Suddenly, a huge boom tears through the air, sending chunks of stone flying everywhere. The guy tumbles backward, panicking because he has no idea what just happened. There it is, right in front of him, a statue gripping a massive trident and looking ready to strike. Dalin couldn't hide the fear that was written all over his face. The giant statue's wings beat so hard they kick up clouds of dust around it. It launches into the air, whipping up a fierce gust of wind, leaving the guy completely baffled as to why it's actually alive. Up on a ledge, the gargoyle waits like a hungry beast, ready to pounce on anyone who looks up. Darwin feels trapped and helpless against the giant beast towering over him. The gargoyle dives down with fierce rage right at the intruder hiding in the ruin. Don frantically shouts at his golems to act. Before the gargoyle could get close, 2 of the gorillas stepped forward ready to jump on the attacker. The statue hits the first one with a blow from his trident. The hit is so strong it snaps one of the gorilla's arms like dry, rotten wood. The gargoyle then turned its gaze toward the other golem that had tried to attack it. Seeing more golems rush in, it leaps up to dodge their grab, and then dives down to slam its heavy tail into the one that had already crashed. One of the stone giants has taken a hit and is now broken. The gargoyle hits the ground just as the gorilla finally falls, defeated by the blows it took. It stands straight and sound, with not a scratch on its side. Dahlin is truly scared because the statue is way stronger than he thought it would be. But the golems are already starting to heal themselves, even though their bodies are badly hurt. Dahlin spots that he must draw the creature's attention to let the golems get a shot at it. He calls forth an earth cue and rests it gently on his elephant's trunk. He then commands the elephant to toss the cue at the statue. The huge rock shoots forward with a mighty push. The gargoyle spots the incoming attack and spreads a wing to block it. As the dust from the line finally settles, the statue's broken wing is revealed. Even after the big crash, it walked away without a scratch. It quickly realizes that the force he throws has no chance against the hard stone of the gargoyle. And that's all he can do right now, with absolutely nothing left to give. With lightning speed, he calls on his powers once more. The elephant hurls another giant block of earth straight at the statue. Once more, the statue protects itself by swinging one of its wings. He then tells his gorillas to charge at the creature. They snatch the statue and hold it still. The stone dragon twists and spins so fast it breaks free from the gorilla's grip, throwing them both flying. Duin had hoped the gorillas could hold them off for a while, but at this speed, they'll turn to dust before he can figure out his next move. He heard a quiet whisper coming from somewhere. One of the gorillas stands up with a firm, unshakable stance. At first, he has no idea what is going on. The gorilla lets out a scary roar right at the statue. It snatches the target from behind and pins it down. He watches the fourth gorilla show off its smart tricks. Watching the scene unfold, he tells the last golems to run away. They slipped away just as the last gorilla pinned the guard down. This wasn't just bad, it was a complete disaster. They've nearly reached the top of the northern peak, and the guardwell hasn't followed them up there. It was a miracle that he escaped with only one golem lost, leaving him to wonder what treasures might lie hidden in the ruins. Math said it wasn't a monster, it wasn't in the boss area, and sure enough, it had popped up right where he wasn't expecting it. That's probably why the rats stay away. There's clearly a mystery hiding behind all of this. Now Ada has to figure out what it is, no matter what happens. Another month has gone by in that place, and he is still stuck on the mountain of death. With rocks and huge boulders all around him, the man works hard but finds it impossible to make any headway. He's already frustrated because that stone is impossible to mine. He forces himself to stay calm because he knows his mind will shatter if he lets it go in this place. Feeling a bit calmer, he takes a look down at the ground. He looks at the tool he used to try and chip away the stone, and as he plans his revenge on the gargoyle and tries to figure out how he got ready, he realizes he needs to start at the very beginning. About a month ago, while walking through the forest, he stumbled upon what looked like a giant hammer. Someone might have left a metal hammer there, and he just came back to make more golems. He learned that earth golems can't fight stone beasts. Since his golems couldn't break stone, he spent a long time thinking and finally crafted weapons tough enough for them to use. They found a hammer, which turned out to be a lucky find in that land. Tall mountains lined the horizon like a sparkling border. The hammer was too tiny for the golems to wield, but he had found a material that could be shaped into one for them. He checked his stash to grab a few useful things. A hammer felt more like a handy tool for fixing things than a weapon made for fighting. Dahlin's path only led to making things. After putting in all his effort, he asked his tiny squirrel if carving an axe was truly the right choice. He pulled the golem back from the clash with the gargoyle. He had never touched stone before, so he spent a whole month learning the craft and getting really good at it. Borp was completely drained from making 5 axes and hated the endless work of mining stone. He pulled the hammer back to chip away at the stubborn stone, day after day, until suddenly a burst of light signaled that his hard work had finally unlocked a new achievement. Now he had the ability to carve stone, a surprise gift from the dungeon that taught him how to dig up Billy, just like the legends did. Now all he had to do was figure out how to use this new trick he had just learned. He thought he had to punch the stone, but it was like hitting a wall and getting nowhere. So he grabbed the hammer, whispered a spell, and hit the boulder, causing a blue light to bloom where the rock was struck. He stared hard at the stone he was trying to break. Eventually, it broke open. He didn't need to swing with all his might to make a clean cut, and remembering how hard he had worked to shake those stones, he realized the true value of this move. So he struck a few more stones to deepen his connection with it and keep learning how it worked. Gazing at the massive stone, he wondered if he could break it too and decided he had to try. The sound of the strike rang out across the whole place. That one hit wasn't enough, but he pictured breaking it with more swings and thought about using this skill to make axes. It was so much easier that he carved the whole axe in just an hour, and now it took much less time to make them. In the end, he finally crafted all 8 axes he had wanted. As he worked with shapes of different forms, he began to understand the material better. He had to hit something tougher than just a stone. The heavier the tool got, the easier it was to crack the stone. He could steer the stone's break, but now he wondered what would happen if he struck without his guide. Even if the wood snapped, the hit would bounce all over without focus, moving too slow and wasting it as useless scraps on the floor. But one of those pieces really grabbed his eye. He swung the hammer down, only to find that the rock had shattered into tiny fragments. He kept hitting the tiny stones over and over again, just to see how much he could break them down. The rock crumbled into loose sand that looked more like dirt than stone, so he stretched out his hand to test how well he could dig it up with his special power. A block started to form in front of him, and he was totally amazed by what he was seeing. He glanced at his supplies and saw that his plan had worked. The brick felt just as hard as stone, almost like it had turned back into rock. He had to break more stones to make more bricks like that, and he couldn't stop imagining how powerful this skill would become once he reached the maximum level. He picked up a stick and started drawing pictures on the dirt. He was coming up with a plan to stop the gargoyle, which could fly and was much stronger in open areas. Knowing that using his stone carving skills on it could be dangerous, the boy kept thinking he just needed a way to get close without putting himself at risk. He needed to dig a tunnel, and with his skill at carving stone, he just might be able to do it. But there was a chance that his current skill level and the time needed would make it impractical. He kept searching for a fix, his eyes glued to the drawing of his golems lying on the ground. And in the end, it looked like he'd finally come up with something really cool to do. After building his first elephant-like golem, he quickly made a gorilla to fight with mobility, but now he needs an even more agile golem to help him. He started drawing shapes on the ground that would make this goal possible. The little squirrel stared at the drawing with pure amazement. Dallin gazes at his friend, trying to find the words to speak. The boy tells his little friend that they need to make new babies for him. The squirrel wags its tail with joy as it watches the family grow bigger. At the ruin's entrance, a gargoyle stands watch. It stays frozen in place, but its eyes never stop scanning for danger. As his eyes brighten, it starts to move slowly while its hand tightens around the trident. The boy has come to take revenge, and the gargoyle knows someone is trespassing. Golems, looking like centaurs, are coming closer. Devin picked the shape of a centaur to get the agility he needed. They moved forward in a tight line, with Dan riding a clay ostrich right behind them. With his clever idea, he built a whole army of horsemen. His top-tier digging skill lets him mold the earth with ease, and while the ancient golems are still whole, they've lost their glowing cores. The gargoyle springs into the air to strike down anyone trying to break into the ruin. The boy shouts that the lizard can cry out all at once, and the first stone strikes the flying gargoyle. It defends against the attack, but this time the stone's impact cracks its wing. The notice is something even more interesting. The wing stays cracked and won't heal, which might mean it lacks a core and is far less dangerous than it seems. So he shouts for the centaurs to charge at the beast. They move forward, carrying the stones the boy carved. The gargoyle swoops down to strike the centaur, guarding the lid. It slashes right through the centaur with its sharp trident. A second centaur swings its stone, smashing the trident's shaft, but the gargoyle quickly uses the broken piece to slice the charging beast in half, while the boy shouts for his fallen warriors to step back and let fresh fighters take the front line. By striking in pairs, he let his golems a moment to heal. With sharper commands that let them react faster, he realized that no matter how tough the gargoyle was, it could only take so many hits before its weakness finally showed as it dropped lower to the ground. With his feet nearly brushing the ground, Dalen commanded his golems to seize the gargoyle's legs. It struggled to lift off again, but the golems held it down while the boy rode his ostrich into the fight. He recalls his friend saying that the bigger a monster gets, the harder it falls, so he digs a dirt staircase to block the statue and orders his team to push it down with all their might as they get closer to the fight. After a hard fight, the gargoyle finally hit the ground. While the centaurs hold him down, Dwin leaps toward the gargoyle. He drops his inventory while falling, throwing a pile of blocks at his enemy. The stone blocks are slowly burying the gargoyle. The force slams down so hard that the golems keep it from breaking loose. The gargoyle struggles to move, but each thud makes it harder to budge. As the stone blocks crash down, the creature tries to run away, but the boy calls upon his earth spirit and sends more bricks smashing onto the gargoyle's head, which the beast frantically tries to chew up before it can get hurt. And since there are still many auctions to go, the boy quickly checks his supplies and hurls even more bricks at it, leaving the confused gargoyle with no way to react in time. Held firmly in its jaws is a heavy stone block, while above, Dao raises his mining hammer ready to strike. With the gargoyle finally down and only a few last moves left, the centaurs keep it pinned while Squirrel, perched high above, cheers on the ostrich. The boy readies his rock-breaking skill to smash right into the statue's jaw, unleashing his sculpting power with a single mighty blow. The hammer strike starts, sending cracks shooting out everywhere. The gargoyle collapses into itself. As the dust settles, the tiny squirrel peeks around to see what happened. The gargoyle's hand struggles to lift itself with terrible pain, but it soon gives up and stops moving. The squirrel cheered its big win even louder as its stone carving power grew stronger over and over. After the battle and reaching level 4, Darwin stands over the shattered statue beneath his feet and celebrates, knowing that no one else has ever succeeded. While the rabbit is shaking in fear, a monkey wearing a suit walks up to talk to him. The mandrill asks how the rabbit has been spending his days, noting that as the guide for Phase 2, the rabbit is there because he was assigned, but since the mandrill controls 2 dungeons and has a real name, he outranks the rabbit in the hierarchy of guides. The rabbit wonders why the mandrill is there, but the mandrill snaps back, asking if the rabbit has been working in the last 2 days. The rabbit agrees, but can't figure out why the mandrill is so unhappy. The mandrill asks the rabbit one more time if he's certain, and the rabbit says yes again. The mandrill notices the survivors reaching him have doubled and wonders why the rabbit is struggling so much. And though the rabbit vows to try harder, he blames the Bolgado for keeping the level 1 boss alive. The mandrill looks like it's had enough. He tells the rabbit to stop lying, and Darlin saves his bricks for later because he thinks the gargoyle's strength leveled up his stone skills to 4. It makes sense that the fight was tough, and while a core would have been amazing, it might have made winning impossible, so he chose to carve the body anyway to save bricks. Now certain the gargoyle had no core, but gave him a boost. He recalls the rabbit's warning that this place marks the end of the world, and while he wonders what secrets hide inside, and if he'll meet others like him, he patiently waits by the ruined entrance before finally deciding to step in with his golems. He yelled for the guy in number 3, who was hiding behind. After a short walk, he was amazed by what he saw, a rabbit trying to run away while insisting he's honest. But the man kept laughing, saying he already knew the truth about the exile named Dalin who defied his fate. The rabbit is in deep trouble and has been spotted by the worst possible person, while Dalin is using his special power to clean up the mess. He realized the place never resets, and that's why the corridor is filled with so many bones. He's starting to worry because there aren't many carcasses left to find. A center steps on a hidden trap plate that sinks, instantly showering him with arrows, yet he's thankful Emo sent the golems ahead since seeing the arrow-riddled hero looks quite strange. But the golems don't feel pain because they can heal themselves. Duin cheers on their great work and tells them to break down the walls so he can shoot arrows without fear of missing. The arrow hits the ground in pieces, so the boy cheers his golems on and tells them to rest. As they stopped, he took out each arrow one by one until the last one was gone, and while the golems cheered, he looked closely at the arrows he had removed. They were so ancient they were crumbling, while other traps held solid oil instead of liquid, and some magic circles failed to work because mold had grown all over them. The boy wonders just how many years that place has been left empty. The squirrel paced around in circles, trying to pass the time, until it suddenly stopped and asked its little friend what was wrong. The squirrel dashes away, and the boy runs right behind it. After seeing him enter a tiny hole and declare a dead end, he commands the golems to smash the wall before them, and they hammer it down with terrible force. The power felt by the boy makes him feel the heavens are backing him up, and his eyes go wide as Squirtle points to a huge gate where he suspects a boss might be hiding. But after feeling the gate confirms the boss is already defeated, he still decides to use the boar's strength. And though he looks through a crack calmly, his whole face lights up when he sees a massive dragon skeleton waiting there. The little squirrel is crazy about all those bones. But the boy holds back, noticing how much the squirrel loves bones. So he tells his golems to join him and stay close, while warning the tiny squirrel to be quiet just in case they need to run away from the fascinating dragon bones they are about to find up close. He kept the excited squirrel from running away. An odd box sat nearby, with Hebrew writing on its lid that caught the boy's eye. But when he sat back down at the table, a blinding light flooded his vision, knocked him to the floor, and made him fear it was a trap as strange symbols began swirling in the air that he couldn't quite understand. Now, the letters made sense, calling him the Chosen One, and the screen confirmed it was really talking to him. The boy jumped to his feet, surprised, and asked, "Who was talking?" The scream answered that this ruler owned the place, and that the hall belonged to him. The boy wondered if the creature was the dragon whose bones lay there, but a screen flashed back to say it was just a Havirian. The boy chuckled, saying the dragon seemed to be in a never-ending sleep. A screen explained that this rule didn't apply to dragons, revealing that after their battle, their life force was drained into the boy, which basically just meant the dragon had died. The boy felt sorry for the creature speaking to him, who couldn't believe its master was gone even though the screen insisted the dragon had left. Changing the subject, the boy asked why the screen looked so serious, guessing that it had short temper. The screen explained that the temple was built to bring the dragon back to life, and the boy asked why they hadn't done it already. The screen showed the dragon was nearly gone, and the boy laughed that it always happens, while the screen reminded him how lucky he was to be the chosen one. Then, changing the subject, the boy asked why the screen said he already had everything he needed. The screen told him he had passed all the dragon's tests and was finally allowed to meet Lorda. The boy fought hard to remember the day he finally passed those tests. The screen wondered if he had already forgotten all the hard things he had to do to get there. Now he could link the troubles he faced together. The screen cheered him on for all that he'd done, and the boy wondered if he'd get a reward. His eyes lit up with excitement. Then the screen showed he would inherit the temple, and he felt a surge of happiness. But he quickly asked the screen to say it again. He wanted to know what good things would come if he took charge of the temple. The screen promised him endless joy, but the boy turned his back, saying he didn't need that kind of happiness. The screen warned it was about to die, and the boy thought it was just trying to make him feel sorry, but it claimed only its soul was left behind. The boy scratched his head, lost deep in thought. They said he was sorry, but couldn't stay because he had to get on with his other things, even though it didn't look like it. The screen kept asking him what was wrong and demanding he accept an honor, but he just said he needed to find his comrades first. He was shocked to hear his own words, not realizing he had finally found his true purpose. He said he wanted to go home, and the screen asked if he really meant it. Even though he'd faced so much, he kept ignoring his heart's quiet wish to go back home. The screen told him that if he wanted to, he could claim the temple and use the dragon's power. The curious boy asked what it was. The screen told us that this power lets us open portals. He lay on the ground, laughing and saying that all of this was very funny. He stared at the screen, thinking about his new job as the keeper of old ruins. He began to sort through his thoughts, finally seeing the surprise of his new title. He wondered if he could tear a door open between his world and the one there. The screen told him that the portals had no limit. But every time you open a portal, you spend a piece of your own life, and the farther away you went, the more of yourself you had to give. And the way this came to pass was through a gift. The boy saw that living things and special objects both held life energy, and he understood the thing in front of him was an altar. He picked up a piece of food and asked if it would work, and the screen told him to set it down on the altar. The moment the food is set on the altar, it vanishes instantly. The screen says the offering was perfect, but the boy asks if he can open a portal right now. The screen tells him that one piece of meat isn't enough to open the portal, so he piles on much more meat to the altar. The screen, shocked by his power to twist space, begged to study the boy. He agrees, and after a quick check, the screen confirms that it now understands. The screen shows he was already chosen as a sacrifice. When the death dragon visits an offering, it leaves a mark called a status window to show who it was there. The boy is stunned when he hears this news. His status window shifted, and he prayed he was no longer meant to be a sacrifice. He starts to wonder if his friends might be just as much of a sacrifice as he is. He took control of the ruin to wipe out the offering mark, though he's still curious if he can use the portals. He sees his new powers and realizes just how strong they are. He shouts out to the screen they now call Alpha. He wonders if he can use vital energy to make his new power stronger, and Alpha says yes. He refuses to leave any stone unturned as he fights to make his dreams come true. He means to pour out more sacrifices than the system can ever take. Alpha asks if he can make a request, and the boy waits to hear what it is. Alpha tells the boy to catch the tiny squirrel that's been hiding on the dragon's bones, and the boy is shocked because he didn't even notice the little creature had arrived. Meanwhile, the mandrill keeps on teasing the rabbit. The rabbit couldn't believe he was being kicked down to a lower job. The mandrill claims the rabbit gave a gift to the death dragon to get away, which caused him to fail as a guide. The mandrill arrived just to steal the rabbit's magic, but the rabbit knew it had been waiting for a good excuse to get rid of him all along. The mandrill keeps saying he's in charge of that area now. The rabbit asks where to go next. The mandrill brushes it off, claiming the rabbit isn't square and that he'll take care of everything. He tells the rabbit to track the survivor down and take him to the mandrill. The rabbit wonders what will happen to the boy. The mandrill tells us it's time to bring him down, making this the rabbit's last mission. Now the rabbit knows the mandrill wants to kill him. Before heading out, the boy asks Alpha one final question. He asks Alpha if she knows he wants to go home, and she says she does. The boy asks if he can go peacefully once he's done everything, and Alpha says yes, but only if he finds someone to take his place. He wonders if he can go out to find someone to take his place since no one is here. He's making an excuse to go back, but he really doesn't want to leave his friends behind. The following day, deep in the deadly mountains, a lone figure wanders with no direction. If the rabbit is looking for a person, he's so frustrated that he can't believe the boy has gotten this far. Spotting the tall towers, he knows this must be the way the boy went. As the ritual continues, fresh meat is laid out on the altar. Alpha eats the offering to power up. The boy wonders if they can use the life force from every offering, and Alpha nods, saying it can be done. He is eager to test out his first power, the one that lets him open doors between places. By pressing his hands to the ground, he opens a portal right in front of him. Now he watches it closely, wondering where the path will take him. Alpha says the portal is useless right now because it leads nowhere until we open a second one. The boy thinks it doesn't make sense because he can't open a portal in Korea. Alpha says his power is still held back by its level, but once he masters it, he'll be free to go anywhere he wants. Hala says that if he keeps moving forward like this, he will finally master the skill in 20 years. The boy, eager to prove his power, opens a second portal right beside the first one. Now that they're linked, Alpha admits his mistake and explains that stepping into one will bring him out the other, leaving the boy thrilled to try it out. And that's exactly what ends up happening. However, his tiny squirrel stayed behind and didn't follow him. Even though the squirrel tries to force his way in, he just can't get through the portal. Alpha explains that only the master can open the portals for others, so Delon gives his word and lets the tiny squirrel pass through. The moment he speaks, the squirrel slips right through and starts hopping in and out of the portals like it's a game. He then asks if his golems can do the same, and Alpha confirms they can eat a pit full of mana. Din thinks it's amazing and can already picture popping golems out of thin air anywhere. So Alpha nods and agrees it's a great plan, though she adds that if Din ever gets into trouble, he should be the one to open the door himself. Don stretches and claims he's waiting outside because the air inside is too thick and hot to handle. Outside the crumbling ruin, he throws a party. He gazes at the peak and wonders what secrets might hide behind it. He steps right up to get a closer look. As he looks down, he is quickly amazed by what he sees. It's a huge ocean of clouds, and Alpha asks if it's beautiful, so the boy tells him that it is. He wonders if Alpha knows what lies beneath the clouds, but Alpha only cares about the temple and nothing else. The boy remarks that while ordinary folks might struggle with loneliness, he has grown accustomed to it. His natural curiosity leads him to build an observatory right there. Before long, he has his tower standing tall. With that, he can feel around to see what's nearby using his main map. The map shows they are trapped in a sea of trees. He thought the world had ended, but they were standing in a wide plain, and Alpha asks if he plans to climb down from the mountain. Alpha fears the temple's ruler might be lost, but the boy insists he's gone too far to turn back and wants to keep exploring. Alpha asks why he wants to go down the mountain, but the boy is so lost in thought that he just pulls his hammer out his bag. He wonders if it's enough, and Alpha, feeling curious, asks what he is up to. The boy said he was going to build a staircase. He starts digging into the earth, and Alpha asks how he intends to build the stairs. Dahlin says his gift for carving stone lets him guide exactly how the rock will split. Alpha says it still doesn't look like a staircase, but Dahlin insists he just keep watching. He stretches his hand out over the marks he drew. Then he spoke a command to carve the earth, and the ground instantly began to shift beneath his feet. To Alpha's great surprise, it worked just as it should. Now that the path down the mountain is open, Don can take his time to perfect his skills as he makes the journey. He's buzzing with excitement and can't wait to make it happen. Meanwhile, a few players are slowly moving through the forest. A woman stands there, lost in thought, wondering exactly where she and they are right now. She won't speak the words, but she's terrified deep down. Some will say they've traveled a long way. He starts to wonder what kind of monsters they might face now that they've passed this part. But every enemy they beat makes them stronger. Even if trouble comes their way, they'll find a way to handle it. No matter where he goes, that iron will inside him keeps his determination strong and unbreakable. His words spark a fire in the hearts of his friends. They find peace in the unknown. She asks if they can plant potatoes there, and he says yes. Samu turns his head away and starts thinking deeply. The mountain on the horizon looks so familiar to him, as if he's stood there before.